Shalom alahayakun, everyone. Thank you for joining me. It looks like we got 14 of you in the room so far. That's wonderful. I really appreciate you showing up here today and spending some time with me as we go through the Ascension Psalms. I know I went through Psalm 120, verse 1, I think 2 weeks ago. And last week, the live stream got cut short because some sort of a malfunction happened when I stopped sharing the screen, from my paperwork, and it literally wouldn't let me come back on. I had no volume, I had no camera. It was quite an interesting situation. Hello, Kay. Very nice to have you here, beautiful lady. David, Lisa, nice to have you here. It feels like a family gathering. There's quite a few of you that are our YouTube family that are here today, so it's kind of like the bonus share time. But these are very important Ascension Psalms, and I know that they have been connected to saying that the 13 steps that were up to the temple, that there's why there's 13 of them. But really, if you want to get down into kind of the hidden aspect of it, hello, Eve. Paige, nice to have you here. If you want to get to the hidden aspect of it, it really has to do with ahava. And ahava is the Hebrew word for love. In Gematria, it is the number 13. So 13 steps, 13 psalms connected to love. And really, this is that inward journey that we're talking about here. Hello, Sue. About the ascension from within as we're going from our lower dense nature and connecting to our higher self. Some might call it the oversoul, some might call it, like I said, the higher self. You could even connect it to a degree of what we would call the Holy Spirit as that which directs our footpaths in the way that we should go, always leading us to our higher good. And so these Ascension Psalms are really um, heart-provoking. That's really where our shadows are. And for those of you who have been following me in some of my work and my husband's work, you know that we talk about shadow work quite a bit because it is that which holds us in our dense form, and it is up to us to turn all of those shadows. And in our turning, there is no shadow left. And that's when the full sacred union can take place. That's when we are crowned with light. This is when we have the Christ anointing with the mind and the Magdalene heart in heart brain coherence, which really gives us access to tapping our creator abilities in this matrix system. Hello, Jody. Nice to have you here. Jeffrey, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for letting me know that you're here. I always like to know who's joining in. And I'm really glad, Kay, that you're able to connect via Facebook. Sometimes I don't see comments from Facebook, so I'm glad that that was able to happen today. What I'd like to start with, hi, Michelle. What I would like to start with is actually the word Psalms. Ron, reality, you don't have to worry about that. I've just been kind of like meandering around for like 6 minutes, so you're not really that late. Stephen, it's nice to see you. We got 24 of you here this afternoon, so thank you for spending time with me in this late. I would call it a Bible study. It's a soft word, but that's really what we're doing. We're going to be diving into the Psalms in starting Psalm 120. I'm not going to go very fast through these things, so it's going to take us a while to get through 13 Psalms, and I'd like to see it all the way through. Because every single psalm and every single verse has such amazing treasure that I could easily overlook a lot of that. And I want part of my process of being here sharing with you is I want people to be able to recognize just the depth and the breadth and the width of the Hebrew language. And many of you that are already on here already know this. That's why you're here. You want to see what these verses are saying. You've seen me go through verses before where I've gone through letters and words and all of that and showing the hidden meanings that just don't get translated into our English narratives, into what we've been presented as a Bible. I'm not saying that you can't get a lot out of the Bible. There's a lot of esoteric side things that you can actually excavate out of the English language. It just depends on a person's perceptions of what they can see, especially if we start dealing with some of the religious dogmas that we have been indoctrinated with and being able to step through some of those. All of a sudden, when you pop through the other side, hello, Paul, nice to have you here. When you pop through the other side, you begin to see the verses in a completely different light. Like, how come I didn't see this before? Well, we don't see certain things because we're not meant to until the time that we are. And that's okay. That's the brilliant side of these writings and what they provide for us, because really the guide, in as it presents itself to us, reveals the deeper hidden side of ourselves to ourselves when we want to dig into them. And that's really what I want to bring forth also. So, in the heart of looking at these things, I am going to ask you to set aside preconceived notions, set aside narratives, set aside the English translation for a bit. And although we will be seeing the English translation, which it's kind of hard because it's like it's already forecasting the way it wants you to see the writings instead of letting the writings unfold themselves to you. It it kind of helps us, but it hinders us at the same time. So as I begin sharing some of these things with you, I'm going to actually go into the meanings of the words. I'm going to show you some of the hidden aspects of what you will find in the words, and we're going to take a look and see what the practical application is for us in this journey. Because the practical application, again, if I can't present something to you that you can do something with it, then I'm just talking to puff up my head. And I don't really want to do that. I want to touch your heart. I want the sacred languages to call out to you in a beautiful way, that it's wanting to have a conversation with you at the heart level, and not so much the mind, even though we engage the mind first, and then we allow it to drop from the mind down into the heart, and that is where the transformation takes place. They communicate back and forth to one another, and our goal is to reach the state of coherence where we're not having the mind and the heart wrestle one another, which is typically what happens when we go through some of the religious indoctrination that many of us have walked through, where we'll see an English writing, English scripture. Excuse me. Hi, Katie. Nice to have you here. Higher Mind. Thank you for joining us. What will usually happen is we'll be reading an English verse in the Bible, and it'll strike a chord in something that just doesn't set right with us in our heart level. And because we see it there and we've been told it is the word of God, and that, it can't be changed, altered, all of those kind of things, it causes some discoherence within us. And what I'm wanting to do is work through that with you. Let's take a look and see what the languages are saying. So first thing, set aside the narrative, set aside the English writings. The second thing I want you to take with you while we journey into this verse today is that these languages are very quantum in the way they present themselves. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at how a quantum superposition works, you can have a plus, you can have a minus, and you can have both running simultaneously. So it's, we're so used to the this or and that and the comparisons because of the tree of good and evil, where we are comparing the light and the dark, that we don't recognize that there's actually a third option, one that is the same. It like points to each other. It 0 points each out. It can be a 1 and a 0, and it can be both at the same time. I know that seems to be confusing, but what that allows us to do is being able to 0 point and see through both aspects, where the 0 point place is where we actually retain wisdom, because we can see both sides operating simultaneously and rising it above it in a position where we're looking down upon it instead of being tossed to and fro with the waves of chaos that can come in a system of duality, but with DUEL, when the energies are not in a coherent state. And so what this does is it allows you to see both of these so that you can neutralize them, 0 point them, which then allows you to rest and be at peace within yourself and to be at peace within the world and the things that you see, where you become more of an objective observer than being subjected to that which is presenting itself to you. Doesn't mean that we don't feel. It just means that we don't get manipulated by our emotions, by the things that we're choosing to see from a dueling position, DUEL. So keep that in mind, because there's times where you'll see this in the actual definitions of the words themselves. And what I've always shared with people when we walk through verses is that the language in itself, through the letters, will tell you how to shift a polarity of a word. So if you see something as being very negative, you can actually go through the letters, the meanings of the letters, and it will tell you how to resolve it. And I love that. It's literally a blueprint to how to resolve these things that we are being subjected to, and finding that we don't need to be subjected to them anymore. We can rise above them and rise up and out of them. Let's see, when you make in the heart and your one, your eye will become whole and the whole body will be filled with light. Yes, I agree with that. DD222, happy to have you here today with us. Thank you. All right. Let's go into the verse. Before we go there, I actually want to describe to you what Psalms is. Psalm is not a Hebrew word. In fact, I have shared before that a lot of our Bible is from, is it Kyra or Chiara? I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry that I don't, but I see you here, lovely. I'm glad that you're here. Hi, Rick. I'm glad you're here as well. Jody, Allison, I love that. Yes, the letters help resolve. Let's talk about this what the word psalm means, and it is coming from that Greek influence. In fact, pretty much all of the books in the Bible have a Greek influence, and so it's kind of good to take them back to know what psalms actually means. I mean, we know that it's writings. We understand that from the perspective of what we've seen in the church, but it's kind of good to have an idea of what psalms actually means. Sam Shine, nice to have you here. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit through the etymology. As you know, Ken and I are kind of the word geeks when we look in these things, because if we can't trace them back to be able to see what the original intent of the word is, then we don't know how to apply it to ourselves. And English is a really fuddled language because it's what they consider a dead language, meaning it's an amalgamation of many that have kind of come together as a conglomerate, versus ones that rise out of ethnic groups, that rise from a people group, a nation group, not something that's been hodgepodge put together. And that's kind of the difference between a living language and a dead language. So English is a dead language because it has a very strong Proto-Indo-European influence. And so tracing it back will help us comprehend where that format was coming from, so that we can collapse some of it. Because it is a dead language and it's an amalgamation, it's always changing. It's in flux with that which the collective is doing at the time. Whereas when we're looking at things that are a little bit more concrete with the Hebrew and the Aramaic, although there's a tremendous amount of movement, there are foundational pieces that one can bring within them that allows to navigate in a broad sense, but have a sure footing along the way. And I really appreciate that, because I know, in my lifetime, in the English language, the word gay has changed quite a bit. The word thong has changed quite a bit. So is the word sick. I know there's a lot more because I'm not into the lingo of the modern day. It usually happens with the younger influence that end up changing it. I think now it's more about emojis is the way we speak. And then there's some texting things that I get all lost on. Like the other day, I didn't know what LMK was. It really had me fuddled. I'm like, LMK, what is LMK? Let me know. I get it. Anyway, it's interesting how the language changes. So we're actually taking it back to more of a concrete value so that we can really see more deeply into what was attempting to be conveyed, something that was very etheric in nature from beyond, that is coming from the absolute state of nothing and everything, the all, and then trying to condense it down into a black fire form, which is translated as letters. It's kind of like a relief. Here, this white fire comes in with all this etheric energy of source in the wave, and then it pulls itself back, and then the letters in the black fire are revealed as in a relief. So it's interesting to see, because it ended up being condensed, but that is purpose, because then when it's in its condensed form, as we study, we look upon it, we meditate upon it, we ingest it, it then has the ability to go within and expand to what it was previously in having to be translated in its condensed form in a zip file, if you want to take a look at it that way, in a zip file, and then being able to be unzipped within us to expand us into that place of the beyond. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you followed that. Might have been clear as mud. I'll attempt to do what I can to clarify that if some of you guys got lost on that. So a psalm in etymology is what we've come to know as a sacred poem or a song. And when you trace it all the way back down, it's interesting because it's connected to playing like on a string instrument, a pole and a twitch. Interesting that we just had the loss of Twitch, a gentleman that took his life a couple days ago. So I'm seeing some connections here and sharing with you guys because in the base of this, in the etymology, it means to feel. It is connected to feeling. And Psalms is used in the Septuagint for the Hebrew word mitzmor, which means song. And so when I looked into the feeling, it's a sensory experience of perceive and sensing something. But when you trace it down, it means to touch, feel, shake, and strike softly. And then when we go back down in that a little bit further, it says to perceive through senses which are not referred to any special organ, to react with sympathy or compassion, or to know something beforehand, to have foreknowledge of. I bring that to you today because these songs, and we're going to go into the Hebrew aspect of what mitzmor is and where it's from, because I think you'll find it fascinating. I do, because there's a hidden message in there. I wanted you to connect to the foreknowledge, because one of the most brilliant things that I've seen about the sacred languages is they literally prophesy to you. Now, when I was in my zealous time within the Christian church, it was like I had to seek one prophetic word after another to try to orient myself as to where I was in the moment or what was being prophesied over me that I was going to become. And I would hang on to those words. And it makes me think about in the narrative that we've received in the Bible about when it was said that Mary stored up that was being told to her about the son that she was going to give birth to. And she didn't have a comprehension at the time, and she stored all of those treasures in here. And I know that's part of the narrative, but that was something that always kind of set with me when I would receive prophetic words and I'd have no idea what they were talking about, or I might have a touch or a feel or a sensation with them. But it was like I had to go from one prophetic word to another in order to keep moving me forward. Well, the beauty of the sacred languages is every single verse in every single chapter and every single letter is prophesying to you. It literally is a mirror of what you can expect in the sense of your becoming in your process of maturation, from going from into the bride training and going into the queen, the royal training, which is the second half of the teachings that happen when you're in the state of maturity in your set apart season. And I love the fact that we don't have to chase anymore. I mean, literally all we have to do is open up these writings and begin diving into them every day. And you have a prophetic word that is mirroring itself so that you can see that which you're digging out. Is like looking in the laver and seeing what that reflection is of the word to see, am I matching this? It gives us the ability for self-adjudication to say, honestly, go within, see what is being stirred up inside of me and going, I'm not matching what I'm seeing here. So that gives me a place to be able to work. But I also know what it's saying to me prophetically. It's declaring something over me. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, which we know is the tetragrammaton, which is the power of desire, or desire's power to be, to become, and come to pass through the tetragrammaton. So it's a much different way of looking at it. And when I began to see the prophetic nature of it, realizing that it was a nabi to me, which is the Hebrew word for being a prophet, what it says to us is that there's a new seed that is being given to you in order for you to build yourself on the inside out. And because it's in the nature of the letter bet, which is in the center, it's saying that it's for your heart and it's for family to be brought forward, meaning the ability to bring your divine feminine and your divine masculine online, which then leads to the yod, the spark of life, the spark of God, the power, the work that is necessary to bring forth something that's new. And usually that yod is a active form of the aleph. So it's always going to say it's bringing you to union. So whatever you're seeing that you're not matching to means that you're separating yourself from that. And the whole goal of prophecy is to draw it near until you actually manifest it and you become it as your being, because it's become infused in you. It's nothing that can be taken from you because you are it. It's your experience, your evolution of your maturation process. So that is the whole purpose. And the Psalms is meant to feel. It's meant to go in, prick, prod, sting you on the inside, stir you up, draw emotion, and draw this place of touching you from beyond in not just one sense, but all of your senses. What does that mean, Carrie? When we begin looking at them deeper, then we can understand and comprehend and understand that all of our experiences that are around us are teaching us, or speaking to us. And it's all about the heart maturation. So it's giving us that inward journey so that we can see where we're at from the inside out, instead of having the outside in dictate to who we are. We are dictating to ourselves from the outside in, or the inside out, to what we're projecting in the world. And we're meant to feel our way through it. So again, what does that mean? These are meant to stir your emotions. They're meant to uncover things that need to be transmuted, that need to be felt. So please keep that in mind as we go through these Ascension Psalms, that it's all about feeling. It's all about the languages touching you, touching your heart, and removing the clutter from the mind, because we can get really twisted up here and end up not feeling it right here, because it's the place of the heart. It's a place where the inner man dwells. If you want to call it the eye within the eye. If you're just in a single eye, then it means you're up in your head. But when you've moved into the eye within the eye, you are now in the inner man. You're in the innermost chamber of your heart that feels. It doesn't see, it doesn't hear. It speaks loudly if you can feel, but it doesn't use words. And that's what we're addressing. That's what we're moving into. So, Shelley, nice to have you here. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to make sure that I get my paperwork set up before I do a share screen, so I don't make you dizzy when before we do that, let's go into the Hebrew element of the word of Psalm, which is Zamur. When we look at the meaning of the word itself, so this isn't with the letters. So again, we can look at all of the translations, like the definitions of the words. It's only going to give you just a portion. That's like the surface translation of what the word is saying. And that's usually where you'll see the dual nature within it. I'm interested in going in deeper to the letters so that you can fully extract what the meaning is, to be able to see the implications for what it's saying to your heart. Because it will address issues. It'll address your outside world, how we play well with others. It will deal with your inside world, with your emotions, your lower self, and then it will show you the place where the two, the outside and inside, unify, and also bringing the higher self and the lower self to unify. So it's really affecting a sphere in 360 degrees, not just in a circle, but the full encompassing, all the way around, as my husband calls it, fully situational awareness, 360 degrees in your sphere value. You can connect that to the Merkaba if you would like. So the root of this, or the meaning of Zamur, it's instrumental music, a poem set to notes or a melody, and it's connected to playing on the strings. Now, I find this very, very fascinating, because some of you have heard me talk about the word memnun, man, which is the word we get for manna. And the root of it, it means, it's like an inquiry. What is this? But it also has to do with a string instrument, a chord that is being played, being part of a chord, which, if it's a chord, then that means that there are mathematical rules to it. There's harmonies, there's sequences that are being played, and it's very ordered. So this speaks of negentropy, which is a compounded word meaning negative entropy, which means you're not in a chaotic order. You're in the opposite of that, which is self-ordering. So this is directly connected to bringing order to your system in a coherent fashion, instead of having dissonance, so that the chord that you are playing is beautiful music to everyone that's around you. There's nothing like hearing sweet music being played versus someone that's learning to play a piece for the first time, and you're listening to it and they keep hitting wrong notes, and it just kind of sets you off just a little bit. So connect to that as well. But I find this very interesting that the root of it means to sing, but it means to witness. And it also means to cut, prune, and trim. It's used one time in the Old Testament and meaning a jumping or a bouncing animal, perhaps a deer or a mountain goat. I instantly, when I see that, I don't necessarily see the escape, even though when a deer does bound away, they do that and they move really quickly. For me, it was more of seeing about bouncing and joy as we're reorienting ourselves to these things that we want to sing about, we want to make a melody to, we want to be harmonious in our expression to other people, and also in our integration within the world that's around us, in our natural state of being as being one with nature, in that very self-ordering, beautiful process of coherence. So if we look at the letters, I'm going to go ahead and show you my page here now, because that way I can highlight some letters and show so you can follow me as I'm talking. All right. Share screen. There we go. And hopefully I won't get kicked out today. I don't want to get kicked out today. All right, here we go. Here is how it's actually written in its active state. And the root of it is here, is zamar. It's interesting to see that we have a word for bitterness right in there, but please connect it to myrrh, because it's literally how you spell myrrh. Think of frankincense and myrrh. Connect this to a narrative, which is about your inward journey, about the season that Esther went through in her purification process before she presented herself to the king. That should connect some things to you. This is the bride, aka one who is set apart, that is getting herself ready to become one with the king in intimacy. So it would be 6 months of myrrh and 6 months in frankincense. Now, there's a lot of properties in the natural states of what those essential oils are, and that's a whole topic for another day. But as we take a look at this, myrrh is actually given its name for bitterness. And then when we have the zayin added in front of it, we're actually looking like at a sword or a plow, where we're looking at things that we are nourishing ourselves with and feeding ourselves to deal with the bitterness. And the bitterness comes from having chaos. That mem can mean chaos, or it can mean mai. And then when we have the resh on the outside, it can also mean poor and destitute, but then it can be leader, top, first fruit. So what is this saying to us? By that which you feed and nourish you is either going to plow you or cut you, to deal with the chaos on the inside, so that you can turn it into a mighty place of no longer being poor and destitute, but being actually raised up to be a first fruit leader. First fruits, as most of you guys know, that's a very common phrase in the English narratives, and it's something that we want because the first fruits always get the double portion of the inheritance. When it's moved into its writing form, meaning now it's in an active state, because what I just shared with you is like the lump of clay potential. It's actually 3 parts. You could take a look at it and say it's got a feminine energy, a masculine energy that come and unite and birth a third energy. Think of the Trinity, if you will, if that helps you connect. But that's in its static state of potential. It's waiting for activation. So when letters are added and deleted, now it's into full movement. It is actually birthing something. It's changing, it's moving in the quantum realm, it's creating. So what moved was we had an additional mem added, and then we had a yod or a vav added. This is huge to see this shift in this word. With both mems flanking, because they are mirrors of each other, this is really connected to like the cherubim on the top of the Ark of the Covenant, as they are a mirror to one another. And that is directly connected to the energy that they create within themselves, which is the Shekinah glory. And right in the middle of that is the zayin, is a representation of the sword or the plow. But in this case, when I see this, I see these twin energies that, because they're feminine in nature and have to do with the birthing process, it's really about the birthing process of these energies that are coming face to face with one another to draw the sword out of you. And what does that produce? Well, when we put these 2 letters together in their sound vibration, we have the word or. And the word or is the word for light. Isn't that amazing? So again, we are discussing these Psalms are emotionally moving and stirring us to create an environment where the sword is being drawn out from our heart, where we are trimming, pruning, and cutting off the things that no longer serve us so that light can be raised up in our process of maturation and first fruit leaders. Very interesting as well that one of the permutations of these first three letters here is a word that means consider and plan a purpose, device. Consider and plan a purpose. So if we're wanting to have a purpose, I think that's a great way for us to look into it. So this is what the Psalms does. So now you know the purpose of why we go into the Psalms, of what their intent is, and now connecting that to ascension, which is our spiritual maturation from our lower density to a higher density where we're more spirit than we are flesh, walking in our avatar bodies, but it's more of a less dense, more full of light, which allows us to be able to do some things that we haven't been able to do before, unlock some abilities that we haven't been able to utilize before, be able to see things that we didn't see before, hear things that we didn't hear before. It's really the ascension of our conscious level as we are changing our flesh suits into a higher state of being. So I don't know about you, but I think that's really fantastic. I should have probably shared that within the beginning, but Spirit said share it today, so we're sharing it today. All right, now that you know what's going on, that's fine, Michelle. The replay will be on YouTube. You can catch it later. Like Adam and Eve before the fall, correct. So again, Adam is mankind, wasn't a male entity, it was mankind. Chava was the living essence frequency that was in. It was the self-ordering frequency of light and life and salvation that was within Adam already. And when it was removed from Adam, that is when we became lower and dense in nature, because we have to go seek Chava. We have to go seek life. We have to go seek our negentropic state again. We have to go hunt and chase for it in the world. So just want to share that with you, Angela, in my perspective of what I've seen through the languages. And all perspectives are welcome here. Okay, I'm not saying that what I'm saying is right and you are wrong. I'm sharing a perspective of that which I have found through the sacred languages, and I'm just presenting the mirror of myself to you in that which I've excavated and have translated myself to be. So let's start. Let's dig into this psalm. Go back to the screen share. All right, Psalm 120, verse 2. So when we take a look at this in the mechanical translation, it reads, Yahweh, or Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, deliver my soul from lips lying and from a tongue deceitful. That's it. That's all it is. Pretty easy. I know I'm getting you guys probably a little dizzy with that. And hopefully this is big enough for you guys to see. If you're on a phone, a smaller device, it might be difficult. If you're on a laptop, you're probably seeing it just fine. I wanted to, before I dive in really strongly into this, I wanted to show you something here about the word Netzal. To show you how the language and why we need to pay attention to letters that are added to or deleted. I mean, you can see that yourself right here. If you don't know the letters, I know that you can at least look and see that there's shapes, different shapes or things that are added. Here's a 3-letter word, and now this one is 5. So there's letters that have been added to it. But I want you to see something about the morphing of this word. Down on the bottom of this, I wanted to show you how many different ways this word is written. Were you guys aware of that? So we will look at the word and it will be translated in a certain fashion in the meaning that is attached to it. But look at all the different ways that it's written in the writings. Every single way that it is written in a different form is conveying a different part of the message to the surface translation of that word. I'm going to pop back out and hang in so see if you guys are getting that. So when the translators take a look at the words, they are seeing that surface translation of what the word means, but they are not conveying what all of those letter movements are about. The things that are added, the things that are taken away, the shifting of the tone of the language itself. If it the vowel pronunciation, if it's an ah or an oo or an e or an eh, all of those things, because we know the language affects matter due to the study of cymatics, each one of those tones are affecting things differently. They're all being communicated to us in a different part of our state of being that we are shifting. And so if you don't have the code and you don't know it and you don't know that the letters have meanings, then we get very surfacey translations that cannot get the bulk of what it's saying because it is written in a type of shorthand. So that's why when we take a look, we're not trying to read the writings. Reading it isn't going to do anything for you. We're meant to study them and excavate them out and painstakingly search, because you're translating yourself into the Word made flesh. It's a bigger way of looking at it. So reading it like a book, if I could just open it and start pronouncing the letters, that's great. But if I can't connect my heart and mind to them, then I'm not creating. I'm just reading, and it's my ego that's doing it. So every time we go into these things, we are connecting at the heart level, at the mind, so that we can actually create something new in our environment, because we're choosing to partner with that which is trying to reveal a greater level with us as it prophesies to itself, and we change our environment and be the change that we want to see in the world. Hopefully that connects. So there was a lot of transliteration, lots of different forms of that word, and that's with every single word of all the writings. If you were to just go in to one verse and then just go see the different forms without even knowing, your mind would just be like, what are we missing here? Exactly. What have we been missing? Well, we don't have to miss it anymore, because the opportunity to learn is here and now, so that you can dig in for yourself. And that's where all the treasure is. That's where all the fun is. Man, show up with your headlamp and a shovel and let's just start digging and have champagne moments like I do every single day. Okay, here we go. So the second verse, it starts out with Yod He Vav He, and Yod He Vav He is that creation pattern. This is it's a toroidal field of creation here, and the inward part of Yod He Vav He is a word that means desire, passion, emotion. Remember, these psalms are working on evoking emotion within, because it's through that we connect and create. And this is, right here, is showing us the creation pattern. And as the creation pattern, this is creating a desire within us so that we can actively participate in it. Here's that little yod that is showing us that through our desire, this power that is being given to us as a spark is going to create something differently for us. So in a simple way of saying Yod He Vav He, I do not see this as the angry, bloodthirsty God, because I've divorced myself from all of those narratives, because I look deeper into the frequency of the words of what they're saying about me. If I want to see Yod He Vav He as an angry, bloodthirsty God, then that's the mirror that I'm choosing to see about my inward self, that I have a lot of rage. I got a lot of rage if I want to see that as an angry God. And I just recommend sitting with it and transmuting it, because here it's really the ineffable name, because it's breath, and it's because it's a creation pattern. So that's why we don't have a name for it. It's an energy. So it's the God man. And I know for some of you don't know what that is, and I'm not going to draw it on the board. I will share that on Patreon next week, what that looks like, the God man. But it's a God man that needs to have this revealing within us. It needs to. It's a gift from above, where we can then turn our dreams into reality. And it's for those that are filled with the power, that understand this creation pattern and what it is. And it's actually telling us very specifically that we need to connect to our heart in order to make this happen. And that makes sense, because the inward man, as we dive in and we look into a little deeper, that is where our passions and our desires are all coming from, is from our inward man. And that's the place that we need to connect to in order to create and make something new. And this is, again, the little diamond on top. It literally is a word that means a gift from God. How beautiful is that? Then we move into the word where it says deliver. Now I want you guys to see what this is talking about, because remember, the psalm, part of it was pruning us To strip and plunder, to deliver oneself. Did you catch that? To deliver oneself. To be delivered, to snatch away, to extricate. When we take a look at what the letters have been added here and what has been taken away, we can see that the noon is no longer present. It's not in this word. And that's not a bad thing, because that's actually saying that has to do with a seed or perpetuity. And when we get into further on in the verse, you're going to see why that noon is not there, because what this is addressing is something that we don't want to continue to perpetuate. So again, the reason why the noon isn't there, it's communicating that we do not want to have this seed to perpetuate something that we're going to get to at the end of the verse. So keep that in mind. But and to do this, as it's saying, delivering, the most important aspect that we can see in this is that we have a hey on the front and also on the back, on the prefix and the suffix. And this is communicating to us that the masculine and feminine energies are trying to reveal something to us in order for us to deliver ourselves, to strip things away, to prune and cut things off. And in the middle, this is quite interesting to see this well, is because this zadi that I've highlighted, there's a little dot on the inside that actually means that there's two of them there. So it's a journey within a journey. So you don't see it, there's a hidden aspect, but that little dot is saying, oh, by the way, there's another journey within the journey. So what is that saying? Think about our journey, our pilgrimage, our sojourning here in this lifetime in the avatar suit. We have an external journey that we do, but this is saying that there's another journey to be made, and it's on the inside. It's just hidden. It's the journey within the journey. And that is where the delivery and delivering oneself takes place from, the journey within the journey. And it is actually showing us, this is actually really beautiful, because this is part of the word for Hallel and Lila. This is a power that is being given to us on the inside, saying that inward journey, the journey within the journey, it's on the inside, and it's going to take work. But you are being given power to do it, means and a direction in order to instruct yourself. This is like upsets the apple cart a little bit. Instruct yourself in the way of her. Lamed means to teach and to learn, compile, put together, wisdom, knowledge, learn, teach. It's also a shepherding staff. It means authority. It also means to poke, prod, stick, and sting. That's what a shepherd's staff does. But that hey on that suffix side is the divine feminine energy. So this is about delivering, not only delivering ourselves, but delivering the Shekinah glory through instruction, through the inward journey of the journey that we're sojourning in. And when we do this, because both of these revelations are on the flank side, this is actually showing us that it is creating that toroidal spin of negentropy, because there's a push and there's a pull. There is that feminine and masculine, the two poles are in play, which is creating that electromagnetism. And so this really is talking very specifically about the out and in instead of the in and the out, as the way of reversing our spin. So as we move down a little bit further into this, we can see that it's now connected to the soul. Now the soul, remember I was sharing with you about the inner man and the passions and the desires, because that was actually what this word means right here, these three letters. And so as we're talking about this inward journey, we're talking about the inward journey of the soul here. A living being, live, soul person, desire, appetites, emotions, passions, properly a breathing creature. It also is vitality. What have we seen changed here from that which root is, the root state is we have that yod. So now the word before, that little yod was on the inside. And this is now saying, where's the power coming from for our soul is on the hidden aspect side where our shadow resides. This would be the negative pole of the dual system. And if we haven't converted our shadow, that dual system of those positive, negative energies are going to be in a dueling state, D-U-E-L, where there's going to be a lot of friction and resistance. So this is saying that the work for this to happen in order to deliver ourselves is going to happen through our shadow side, through this hidden element that comes in our set apart season as we're working to make ourselves into the queen. I hope you guys are connecting this. I'm going to stop for a moment and I'm going to come and check in with you guys, because when I'm on a screen share, I cannot see anything. Oh, you guys are more listening than you're asking questions. That's awesome. I love it because you guys are paying attention instead of typing stuff. That's awesome. Good. I didn't lose you guys. So now what I'm going to do, now you can see where the work needs to be done with the soul. Let me show you some of the hidden elements in this word. And this, I mean, this is where for me it just gets fun, because it's complex, but it's not. It's vortex, it's a spiral, it's a golden spiral that is meant to lift us up. And when you can see that, then you can see how that takes us up into the heavenly realms, where we're seated in heavenly places already, but now we get to connect the heavenly places with our earthly avatar body that we walk around in. So it's okay, Stephen, if you're not resonating yet. There's a lot here. There's a lot here that I'm unpacking. And I'm glad that you're here listening, because seeds are being planted. Whether you're able to connect to them or not, seeds are being planted, and the waters and the rains will come. Okay, let's go back. So what's hidden in this word? What I just love and find so fascinating with it. Here we have this pay. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to highlight it just so that it's like diminished. Pay has to do with language and speech, and this is one that it's a mouth that is bringing forth revelation that you need to do work with in order to create the essence of being one with the absolute. And this is specifically languages that have revelation to them, which the Hebrew and Aramaic, that's all they are. I mean, it's, you have to dig the well to get the information out of it. But what's flanking on the outside of this is an active form of the word. It's nasi. Remember I was saying about nabi and prophesying? Well, nasi is the active form of the fire of God, which is that negentropic state. And it's coming from an active form of a word meaning to lift up. So it's saying that the language of fire, of negentropy, is for with the within nature. It's all for the heart. It's about engaging and taking the little burning coal and making it a blaze, which we're taking our cherubim separated self into becoming a seraphim messenger as a burning one. And what I'm seeing is that because the noon, it's not from me to you. This is the translation of myself through my own enjoining, through my work of my own shadow. That's what it's sharing with us. So a hidden word in here, because remember the word before is saying that we're delivering ourselves from something. Well, the pei shin right here is a word that means it's connected to haughtiness and folly. And what flanks it on the outside, the noon and the yod, is an active form of prayer. We beseech thee. We beseech thee. Go within, deal with your haughtiness. Deal with your pride. Deliver yourself. Do the work in your shadow, because that's what's going to lift up the soul, so that it can be in the place where it's breathed upon. Because once it's breathed upon, it actually brings refreshing. We become refreshed when we can deal with this. When we move into the next one, translated just simple surface translation, we have the lips. Lip, speech, edge. The idea of termination is a natural boundary, a language, a margin of a vessel. You can see all those meanings of those words. I don't need to go in. You can read them on the page here. But how interesting that it's connected to things that are being swept away, being snatched up or caught up, and coming from a word of sense of clarifying. So what is this clarifying? Well, for those of you guys can see this, just the shapes of the letters. I don't expect you to know the letters, but the shapes of them. Look at the order here. We have a pei shin here, and then it shifts to a shin pei here. That is very, very purpose that it was written this way, because this is actually showing you that this is tongues of fire here, and then when it shifts here, it's fiery tongues. So what does that mean? When you hear about being able to have fire come out of the mouth, this is This is a state of our being where our words are affecting matter on the outside, but it's words that have very strong authority. They're words that are like a two-edged sword that come out and they cut. That doesn't mean that we get cutty and bitey with people. What I'm saying is these are words now as a fiery tongue that are coming out that pierce another in a good way. Because as an adversarial component, as an adversarial friend, the shepherd is always seeking the best interest of those that it is trying to assist if they've been given the ability to assist. So this is strong authority. This is coming from the fire from the throat chakra itself, which if you do a study on an Akash, you can instantly see that the seraphim, the throat is involved with that. The throat chakra is wide open, and that's where we see the reverse on this. This is actually the fire within the fire, because again, like before, we had that double zadi, the journey within the journey. Now we have a fire within the fire. Throat authority. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks with authority. And the sheen has to do with inculcations, walks, sharpening ourselves, ripening ourselves, weaning ourselves. And look what it's doing. Because this is in the inside of the word, it literally is saying that this is delivering us from death. Memtov on the outside is a word meaning death. So these fiery tongues, or the fire language, it's another way to say it. So not only is this coming from a place that you then have the authority to speak, the fire from the fire, within the fire, but this is also letting us know that the fire language, the Akkadian flame letters, the ancient Hebrew, is what delivers us from death. That's pretty amazing, if you guys can connect to that. There's another aspect that I want to show you on here that you guys wouldn't catch right away, but it has to do from the root word and then how it manifests and morphs into the written word, what is being communicated to us. The pehe is connected to beauty. And whenever we see a tav that is written, tav is a letter that means to be complete, like it is in a state of as is. This doesn't have anything to do whether or not somebody believes something. It has nothing to do with belief. It is in a state of as being as is. There's no discrepancy. There's no arguing this or that. It's completed. It's finished. It is as is. So this is speaking to us that these living waters, mem and sheen together, form a word that means to draw out the beauty from within, so that it becomes as is, having been fully completed, which then draws you out and delivers you from death. Because in actuality, it's appointed once for man to die. As soon as we enter in, death is just separation. Separation is what happens when we enter into this matrix, because we separated ourselves for the sake of experience. We separated ourselves from Creator to have an individuated self-expression. That's really death. So what are we doing? We're delivering ourselves from death. We're delivering ourselves from separation back into union as being one with the Creator. And the sacred languages do it. The tongues of fire, the Pei Shin, is what helps deliver ourselves from that. Can you see how this is connected into this process of ascension now? Going in much deeper than just a cry out, oh, Yahweh, deliver me from a lying tongue. I hope you guys are seeing this. The other part that I want to show you of this, when it's talking about sweep away or snatch or catch up, notice that we have a semek here instead of a sheen. This is the next evolution of this word. And so as this is sharing with us, as it's prophesying to us, and it's declaring that if we go through the flame letters, the flame language, delivering ourselves from death, that there's something that happens in the next step. The sheen always seeks for the semek. Semek is a letter that it's the wedding ring. It's also being surrounded, protected, hedged in, propped up, and supported. So in this place, swept away or snatched away, this is directly connected to the ancient Hebrew wedding. The bride never knew when the groom was going to come. And it was appointed for the father to tell the groom when it was time to go get the bride. But she would never know the day or the hour. She would know roughly the season, because it would be a 1 to 2 year time frame of being set apart while she was making her garments, her wedding gown. But the father is the one, as the son was building onto his father's house in order to bring his bride there to make her his wife. And in the day of the wedding, she would actually be called the queen and he would be called the king. That this is where they would say that they were snatched away or caught up. It was like it would happen in the late 9 hours, and a shofar would be blown. And in the shofar's blowing, which is kind of interesting, that's pretty much, you can see that in the word. That's interesting. I didn't quite catch that before. But when the shofar would be blown, the groomsmen would go blowing the shofar and would say, "Behold, the bridegroom comes. Behold, the bridegroom comes." Now, this would be a procession. So the bride was always waiting. She knew that within a year or two, at some point, the groom would come for her. So she would make herself ready in her set apart season, and she would wait for that trumpet blast. She would wait for that shofar blast, and she would wait to hear, "Behold, the bridegroom comes," or "Behold, the bridegroom comes for his bride." And so this is why she would always keep her lamp lit with oil, so that she was ready. She was always ready for that time when she'd be snatched away and brought into the bridal chamber where she would become queen. Man, I hope you guys are connecting to this. This is what we're talking about. This is part of the ascension process in the preparation of delivering ourselves, so that that energy, that instruction of the Shekinah glory, that Shekinah glory is our wedding garments. Please understand that. The queen of heaven, Revelation 12, sign in the heaven, she was clothed in light. Shekinah glory. That's what this is talking about. Let's go back in. It's already been an hour, my goodness. So this is connected to that sacred wedding. And it's saying that in the process of this, we are to draw out the beauty. See, we are making ourselves in a place where the beauty is so overwhelming because the light has clothed us, which makes us beautiful. Because we've drawn it out. We found the fire within the fire to light our lamp. I know I did a while ago on the YouTube channel, if you want to look into the wise and foolish virgins. There's some pretty amazing things. I broke down that whole section and shared it on a live stream. You may want to go check that out. But it's up to us to draw that out. Nobody does this for us. We do this for ourselves. And this combination right here of these letters, it says in the end. It means in the end. In the end, the Shekinah glory is going to be revealed. Those who are caught up as those who are wedded. Those who have the wedding ring, the signet ring, they are now completely hedged in and supported. Oh, that's beautiful. Let's talk about lying now. As you can see, I highlighted in green disappointments. It's not just deceptions, falsehoods, and untruths. It has to do with our disappointments. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. I know this very well. This is why I'm not one that gets into date setting much, because I feel that things are going to unfold organically just as they're supposed to. It's not for me to worry about what tomorrow brings. It's only about what I need to be doing in my today that concerns and matters to me. So this is delivering me, myself, from all the disappointments of all the times that I had things that I thought were going to happen, things that my mind thought were going to be a certain way, and they never did. Because I was trying to be taught. My higher self was saying, "Hey, sister, don't put all your eggs in the basket over there. Why don't you deal with what you got right in front of you? That's enough for today." So this is also digging in deeper and emotionally having us feel what these disappointments are like. And disappointments take in many shapes and forms. Disappointments in work environments, health situation, family, chain of events, what others have done to you, what you thought you should have done, the different things that we're disappointed in. But take a look at this too. It's actually talking about deeper issues too, because as we go into this, it's like envying and the ogling with the eye, desire for something outside of you, and hatred. So the sacred languages, the tongues of fire, are meant to help draw all of that out too, to deliver us from that. Because these things are not truths. We are, as I am in the moment, right now. It's only us that puts the shame and guilt upon us. We're the only ones that do it. So this is drawing our shadow out so we can turn it. And how does it happen? Well, when we take a look at the letters, because again, like I said, every letter is telling you how to resolve this. What it is saying to us is that this negentropic fire, the reason why we need the fire is because it helps us to compress the light that we need on the inside during the circle of time so that we can circumnavigate ourselves. And it gives us the ability to find the narrow path between the light and dark through that which is hidden being revealed, much like the sunrise. As the sun is coming up over the horizon, it is bringing light in the dawn of the day that is displacing and dispelling all darkness. That's what we're doing here. But we're finding the narrow path between the two because both those poles must exist simultaneously for the fire to be generated, like two battery terminals on a battery. They both have to be connected, or else we're not in that sustainable place of ordering and we're back in the entropic state of decay. And this is meant to rise us up out of that destitute place of the rate of decay into negentropy self-ordering so that we're raised up as first fruit again. It's all about the drawing. So it's letting you know that this work has to be done on the inside. And all of that is revealing your shadow through the light. That's why that it's a picture in the Paleo Hebrew, a circle with a line that represents the sunrise. So as the light comes in, it reveals a shadow. Do your work, transmute your shadow. And on the flanking side of what you don't see the highlighted, I've got that kuf highlighted. It's Sar, which can be looked at as prince, but it has to do with the royal state, meaning one who is waiting to ascend the throne. Again, you guys, it's all connected to that Hebrew wedding, like I just shared with you in the last word. One who is waiting to ascend the throne, waiting to become the queen. This has to be dealt with. This isn't about the lying tongue on the outside. It's about what's going on in the inside of you, drawing out every untruth, every falsehood, every envy, hatred, every lie that shadow has, that you have compressed within yourself, the things that you don't want to see. Now, of course, this gets really fun. Anytime anything has to do with the word, I get excited because I'm a word geek. I love the word. I passionately love it. It's a love letter that reveals itself to me every day as I make love within and getting to have the fullness of me rise because of it. So this is and from tongue. Now, interesting to see this because tongue in its definition means language, but it's figurative for people as well. So in the mirror, when it's saying delivering us from people, lying people, what is that saying? Well, in the mirror principle, let me stop share. I'm going to come out and see you guys again. Let's see how your comments are. In our outside world, everything is a mirror that is showing us a reflection of what we've got going on in the inside. As we draw these things out of us and we deliver ourselves from those shadows, them, the separated other selves, will no longer be coming into our sphere to reflect that back upon us. So we already deliver ourselves from that kind of environment because we no longer need to see it anymore. So when you've delivered yourselves of all of those things and you have become one on the inside where you're unified in love, guess who you draw in your sphere? The exact reflection of who you are. So if you are in the embodiment of love, as healed, as whole, as holy, who are you going to draw in your sphere to mirror it to you? just like you, because you delivered yourself of the falsehood, the lying, the envy, the anger, the hatred, the bitterness. You delivered yourself of it. So that's not going to come in your sphere anymore. Do you know how much that changes the environment? How much the world would change? And that's just your little sphere. What if we're all doing it? This is a process of creating heavenly earth for those who are partnering in it. Now, I'm not saying, Heather, it's so good to have you here, my soul sister. Um, all of this is the work that we're doing to help the collective, to change the whole earth. But we can only do it one person at a time. And the only change that we can ever effectively do is right here, people. Let's get coherent. And as soon as you're coherent in here, when you don't have all of those other things in you, your world is coherent, and that's what you draw in, and that's what we live in, and that's why this place is so beautiful. It's the most amazing school ever. It's the most amazing experience ever because of what it teaches us. Because when you get on the other side of healing, you get to see it fully for what it is, and all you can say is Toda Rabba, Ahava. I'm full of love. I'm full of expanded gratitude. Because the Shekinah glory can flow through me now. Because I delivered myself of everything of those lower vibrations. And it wasn't by resisting them. I let it flow through me. I felt every single bit of it. And then I was able to have that breath of refreshment come back into my life and refresh me. Because I turned all of those things. Are you guys seeing how that is all going through this one verse? There's not much more here. Malal. Again, this is really, I know you guys don't know this because you're not in it, but this is really fascinating to see all of these words that have this double dagesh in them, where it's a letter hidden within a letter. This is actually speaking. This is why I get so thrilled when I dig these things out, because it's saying that there is a hidden teaching within the teaching. Ah, of course there is, because this is where the code, where you can actually dig in and pull these things out, it's actually hidden. You have to find it. And that's why one would have a teaching shepherd for a little bit, to be able to teach them the oral tradition so that you could pull it out, so that you could no longer be the sheep and you can be a shepherd and help someone else. So there's a teaching within the teaching. There is a subtext within the text that is meant to teach you, to bring forth. And because the mem and the sheen are flanking this lamed in the center, which has to do with your heart, again, it's that draw this out, draw the instruction out. The lamed is also connected to a light bearer. It's connected to one that has authority, that is then speaking from the place of the heart, because they drew themselves out through the water and through the fire. The feminine and the masculine. Mem is connected with water. Sheen is connected to fire, and those are dealing with the masculine and feminine energies. And mem lamed is a word that means speech, word, like written word, like what we're looking at right now. And it's saying that this language is meant to fill you with fire, and that you're to draw yourself out through these two twin staves. And now when two lameds get together, it actually creates a vortex whirlwind. This is the creation of the Merkaba, your energetic body, your light body, the inner man, that which your aura goes beyond. It creates the golden spiral, vortex, phi, 9, the 9. You've heard us talk about flipping your 6 to the 9. It's taking the lower Adamic man and flipping them into their natural state of being. Now, how do we get there? How do we get there? Because this is delivering us from all slander. Again, if you don't slander yourself on the inside anymore, you won't be slandering anybody on the outside. You will be in a protective state of being from that which you speak, because you don't have negative self-harming speech within. You're delivering yourself from that. This is telling us how to do it. So what has been added? We can see that the mem was added. It's saying that you're entering in through the word. This is the reason why the mem was added, was to tell you that in order to deliver yourself, you need to go through the word. The word is going to help you because it has the codes. It's going to rewrite things from the inside out so you can deliver yourself. So beautiful that's like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like a little sneaking there. And so there's a teaching within the teaching that's going to help deliver you from all the slander, all the bad negative speech that you say about yourself, so that it is no longer there. The queen does not speak a slanderous word. And it's not that, ooh, I can't speak. It's just not there anymore. How am I going to slander another? If I'm not slandering myself, I won't slander another. A person who slanders much on the outside, you can know what's going on the inside because they have much hateful speech about themselves on the inside that they never speak about. But it's always running, it's constantly speaking to them. And so they have to get it out by slandering another. But it's all being transmuted. We're all going to get there, some just taking a longer journey than the others. That's all. We can't get it wrong. We just take different paths to get to the same place. So the other aspect that it's saying in this is that Vav. There's that beautiful transmutable sign that we connect our ethereal side to our earthly template, where we find the narrow path between what is and what is not, to that which exists and that which does not exist. It's that 0 point. It's not a paradox. It's just different perspectives that have been unified as to one. They don't cancel each other out. They allow the space for them to exist simultaneously. That's why I said in the beginning, this language is very quantum. The positive and the negative can exist simultaneously in the same place. It's not a this or a that. It's all. It's the expression of the all. And it's saying that this is where we connect. This is the hidden chamber of the place of the heart. This is actually where the sacred union takes place. So in the process of this, it's already showing us that the Hebrew wedding is in here. It's showing the set apart time. I mean, it's amazing to see the code that is within here, because if you didn't know that lifestyle, the Hebraic lifestyle, you would never know about the ancient Hebrew wedding. So you wouldn't be able to see that analogy working itself out in this very verse. This is so incredible. So when that Vav is on that suffix side, that means you've gone into the dark hidden chamber of the innermost being, where you have actually consummated self. My husband's been talking about this on Patreon, about making love. We make love within. This is that place of intimacy. And we need not to be afraid of sharing those things. It's not dirty. It's absolutely beautiful, because once you've made that place, once you've entered into that place in the sacred chamber of your heart where you've made love, you are unconditional love. And that means you return to your former love, your first love. You are now one with Creator. You are one with your first love. You're not separated anymore. That means both of those twin energies. And it's important for us to address the fact that the God energy, I mean, again, the trouble that we have is that our whole concept of what God is got misconstrued as something outside of us, separated from ourselves, that we had to devote our energy to and subject ourselves underneath, instead of realizing it's the divine nature rising up within us. And that's a completely different way of looking at things. And I know that upsets the apple cart. But when we can understand that that energy of God is mother and father, it's like looking at a coin that has two faces. It's the same coin, but one side is male and the other side is female. But it's the exact same coin. It's one. And yes, Dawn, nice to see you here. Returning to our first estate. Exactly, our first estate of being. Unconditional love. So this verse, I'm not going to go back and read it all the way through. I delivered it to you in a much longer expression, but I wanted you to see the totality of what it is saying to us in this process of our ascension, and how it's showing us how to do it. Now, am I saying that you need to jump into the sacred languages? No, I'm not going to tell anyone they have to do that. I'm saying the opportunity is there if it's calling you. Other people experience it other ways. There are people that have had other experiences where they didn't need to go into the sacred languages. I will share, though, with some of you who may be very trapped in emotional baggage, some of you that may be very trapped through the English narratives of the Bible, that you are a student of the Word, you've loved the Word, you've studied it, it's part of who you are, but yet there's things that you're questioning. The sacred languages would be perfect, because now, with all of that English narrative that you have, Spirit can use those verses and say, like it has for me, hey, Carrie, dig in that verse. You remember? And all of a sudden a verse will pop up in my head, and it'll be just for the moment that I need something, or that it's wanting to show another side of who I am that I haven't been able to see yet. And it's giving me and gifting me a love letter as I make love in here so that I can then express it to all of you out here. So none of it is wasted. So please hear me. I am not telling people to throw out their Bibles. I'm not telling them to burn the Bibles. I'm saying it's a great way to have like a treasure map of the little X marking the spot, and then it says go dig here. That's what it is. It's a map. And then you get to dig and you get to uncover the treasure of who you are as you translate yourself and prophesy to yourself. Because what then happens is the shepherd, you no longer need an outside shepherd to show you how to read the languages or what the letters look like or how to pull apart the words like I'm trying to do with you guys here. You do it yourself. You become your own shepherd. Brilliant. And you're partnering with your higher self and your lower self to have that intimate making love in the heart where they become unified in intimacy. We are all desiring intimacy. We want to live in that place of intimacy. It's like when we get those heavenly encounters, like many times why we enter into worship. The Riveras, if you guys know Alberto and Kimberly Rivera, they make beautiful soaking music. I just love them to pieces. They have helped me so much in my journey, especially early on, where I could touch, taste, feel, and see how good the Spirit was. So I could trust it to lead me into all truth, into what I'm doing now. Because I'm telling you, there were, in the first times when I started digging out these languages, I was terrified. And then I had to face some things that my theology had to change. And the only way that could happen was by trusting the Spirit and that which I felt and had that loving embrace from the outside in so that I could develop it from the inside out. That is really important. And so I don't take a look at the church time that I had as being anything negative at all. I see it as just stepping stones, just like I see the English Bible for me was stepping stones. Like I said, for many of you, you don't need these, but there are those of you that are being called to the language because the priesthood are those who deal in the language. Not everybody is called to being a priest, and that doesn't make you less than. So please hear my loving words when I say this. This has nothing to do with separation. This is not saying I am something and you are not. Please do not. There are many of us that are doing many things. Not everybody needs to be a priest because there are other things that need to be done. Everyone is being called into that which is their gifting to assist humanity, but there are those that are being called to the languages very specifically to become teaching shepherds themselves, to help in turn and assist another who is in need, who is really stuck. This is an incredible tool to get you out of your stuckness. This is a very great tool to deliver yourself, hence why the verse that we just went through was all about self-deliverance. And it was showing you, and I was pointing out the letters, how the sacred languages do that. So if you're really, really stuck, it's a great place to go. You're welcome, Kay. Thank you for hanging in here with me today for an hour and 20. I really appreciate it. So I'm not going to hold you guys any longer. I hope that you got much out of that you understand the purpose of the Psalms is to get us to feel, to get that coherence going on and to deliver ourselves from things that keep us from separation and from that sacred union within, so that we can actually connect to our divine creator abilities and make things anew in our sphere of influence by that which we want to bring into our world, instead of that which is reflecting the anger, bitterness, hatred, envy from the inside out, and also delivering us from our own negative speech that we speak of ourselves so that we will not slander another. We just become love. We protect, we guard, we love, we lift up. And that's what these languages will do. I just started teaching on them. We just did part A on Wednesday, so it's not too late to join. The Patreon gate amount is $5 a month if you want to learn how to do this. There is a 10-part series right now that I've completed of the introduction that actually shares about the why you would maybe want to come in. It brings in science, it brings in the quantum realm, cymatics, Dr. Emoto's work, how it works within the matrix, because this is technology. The language is technology. It's not just something to tickle our ears. It literally is technology because it shifts our DNA, it shifts who we are, and it shifts the matrix around us. We are being given a very, very powerful tool, and it is our inheritance for those who are of Israel. So please join us if that's something you're interested in. It's patreon.com / the stand 121. Otherwise, I will just be coming and sharing from my heart every week as we make our way through the Ascension Psalms, as we walk this out hand in hand together, going from our bride maturation into becoming the Queen of Heaven, where we become the illuminated beings that are of unconditional love. Thank you. Thank you guys for your love, your energy, and your support. Ahava, Shalom Aleichem, and Haliva.